bring in our think tank tonight, get some perspective on this. Joining us tonight in New York City at our Court TV studio, trial attorney Marie Napoli, and in studio, criminal defense attorneys Michael Bixon, Christina Kempner, and Ben Githy. Hey, great to have you all here.
Good to be here.
Should we be surprised that the rapist is now filing a lawsuit? What's he going to do with the money if he wins?
I mean, he's still entitled to sue. It doesn't matter what he does with the money. There is a duty on the state's part to make sure that he's still safe. He's not in there being punished, to be stabbed or raped or whatever happens to him in there. They have a duty to protect him, and when they fail to, meet that duty, there's negligence on their part.
Marie Napoli joining us in New York City. Marie, does this guy have a case, and what happens if he goes to trial? That jury's probably going to find out why he was in prison, right?
Well, they really aren't entitled to know why he was in prison. That's really irrelevant. What is relevant was that the prison had a duty to this man. They were negligent in performing that duty and resulting in an injury. This man was caused to be injured because of the prison's duty to him was broken, and he has a lawsuit. Whether or not that he was a prisoner at the time would affect the amount of damages that a jury would award him. Yes, but I think he has a very good case.
What do they have to do? I mean, you're in prison with a bunch of prisoners. These are all and it's 59 years, right? And he's saying, you need to protect me from all these other guys.
My issue, as soon as I saw the video, was this happens every single day. So it makes me a little bit angry when something like this happens. I'm glad it's out in the media, but what makes me angry is I've got numerous clients, if not every one of them, that has been assaulted in some shape, manner, form, injured, hurt, unimaginable things that the public doesn't either want to know about. They just hide from all of this because once someone's incarcerated, they've washed their hands of it. It might be out in the open for him because he was famous, but this is small potatoes compared to what happens in this country once somebody becomes incarcerated.
It almost sounds like, though, that everyone here is lobbying for solitary confinement for every inmate in the country, and we'll keep them safe that way.
No, we just need better reform inside. Nobody wants to know what really happens in there, and it's about time people find out because these are real people and real lives, not just one person in California.
All right, we got another story we're going to talk about, and Ben, get ready. I'm going to you first on this one, all right?
Not a problem.
This involves Odell Beckham Jr., okay? NFL superstar. But when he was in college, he went to LSU, so he was at the college football championship game. Then after LSU, his alma mater, wins the whole thing, he's in the locker room. And he's in there celebrating with the LSU team. But police come into the locker room and are telling the LSU guys to stop smoking cigars because this is a no-smoking zone. And then watch what Odell Beckham Jr. allegedly does. You can watch the video, see it for yourself.
Hey man, D. Lou finna go to jail, y'all. Hey, hey, what about the big ugly, baby? No! Hey man! Lord.
That is Odell Beckham Jr. right there. Now he's kind of taunting and dancing in front of the officer, but kind of swatted him, and at least it appeared to me, swatted him on his bum, right there, on his buttocks. Ben, there's now an arrest warrant out for Odell Beckham Jr.
Poor Odell, and I wouldn't normally be saying that since he's a multi-millionaire athlete, but I don't think he foresaw this. I think he got caught up in the moment celebrating this awesome victory for his alma mater. He's in there, he's hanging out with the athletes. He's probably remembering his college days, and I think he got a little carried away. I don't think in a million years he anticipated being sued or having an arrest warrant taken out for simply just having a little fun with the officer, which he's probably done millions of times, but it looks like this one's going to backfire on him.
Yeah, arrest warrant issued for him. And remember, this championship game is in Louisiana, okay? This is the biggest victory in that state since the Saints won the Super Bowl, right? So the whole state is celebrating, but these officers are telling the LSU team, stop smoking the cigars, and then Odell Beckham Jr. Whew. What's going to happen here?
I think they took it a little too far issuing an arrest warrant. I agree. I do think this.
But should you? I mean, you shouldn't swat a police officer on the bottom. You can't do that.
You can't. You can't. In the real world, however, this was part of. I do think he got a little
context.
right. I think in
Context.
context. I mean, we tend to be a little too far in the Me Too movement now. I don't want anybody to start, sending me hate mail, but we do have to bring it back a little bit and put things into context. I do agree that he shouldn't have touched the officer, but I do think this arrest warrant might have been a little bit. It is a misdemeanor. I think they could have issued maybe a citation, a fine, but I'm not so sure this really warranted him being arrested.
I agree.
Yeah.
Nor does it.
How about the people of Louisiana? Who are they siding with here? You think they're siding with their police or OBJ?
It seems a little petty when you watch the video to take such action against someone. For that, it seems a little petty. And I think it's hard to view it in another way, honestly. So I can't imagine that they'd be really siding, saying, throw him in jail, throw him in prison after you watch something like that, especially in the context of that video.
Maria, the fact that he's a football player and they always swat each other in the bottom, is that a defense here?
I don't know if that's a defense, but I don't think that this would have happened if it wasn't a police officer. I think they're trying to make an example of him, just protecting the police, but that is a common practice among football players and could possibly be used in his defense.
I was surprised to see police officers in the locker room to begin with, but apparently cigars were being passed around, and you can't smoke inside anymore.
You got to protect them against themselves, I guess, because I mean, come on. The whole thing was just overdone. They're celebrating a big win. Let the guy smoke his cigar if he wants to smoke. The whole thing, I think, is overblown. I think it's ridiculous for them to arrest somebody over this.
And they were even showing on Sports Center.
agree,
Joe Burrows,
100%.
the lead quarterback, who the Heisman winner, actually was smoking a cigar. That was his celebratory thing to do. And so I'm assuming it was going on in the locker room. There weren't bottles of champagne being popped. They're college kids, so I don't think that's a thing. So they could smoke cigars. I think 18.
I'm Seema Iyer. Sure, some people call me tough, but on Court TV, they call me the queen of crime.
The all-new Court TV, your front row seat to justice.
The initial crime scene, because of the number of victims involved and other factors, was one of the most complicated that I've seen in my career. And that was a factor in the need to submit multiple submissions to FDLE, and it was a factor in the amount of time that it took to process the scene, which, as the sheriff indicated, was several days.
It's a death penalty case. Donald Hartung on trial for the murder of his mother and his two half-brothers. Jury selection is continuing, and neither side has spoken publicly that much about this case at the courthouse, okay? They're not really, we haven't been privy to a lot of the details. What we've been told from prosecutors is, hey, wait for the opening statements. So those opening statements will be coming up soon. In the meantime, though, that's not going to stop us. So we're digging through some of the documents. Came across one of the search warrants. I wanted to share that with you. So they executed a search warrant. Here's some of the things they were looking for. Some of it pretty normal. Electronics, right? It's 2020. Electronics have a lot to do with this. Laptops, computers. Clothing, possibly worn by the suspect. Narcotics, did that have a role in this whole thing? Firearms. One of the victims was shot. Any all gun parts and accessories, got that. Any paperwork associated with the residence, the occupancy. DNA. You got to track down the DNA when you do a search warrant. Vehicle keys, right? Okay, that might have something to do with how someone got there, how they left. Wicca pagan evidence. Wicca pagan evidence. Aha. All right, so why on a search warrant do you have a line for gather up all the Wicca pagan evidence you see at the scene? Well, one of the reasons is, I'm going to read that to you, part of an affidavit from one of the investigators who said on July 31st, 2015, during a consented search of Donald Hartung's residence, Investigator Jackson and I located a room inside Donald Hartung's residence designed for worship. Donald Hartung advised he is Wicca pagan I researched Wicca pagan rituals where certain spells performed have items used that would be present on the table set up for worship. There's also a correlation with the ritual of prosperity that falls on July 31st, along with the blue moon rituals that occur every 3 years. This year, the blue moon is on July 31st. Okay, so there's some sort of a connection here. And when the sheriff came out before this case was solved in his press conference, he said, oh yeah, this is witchcraft. Okay, this is witchcraft. And it looked like a ritualistic killing. Let me bring back in my think tank on this issue. There's a lot to talk about, but let's start with this, just this whole thing, this sort of hovering over the trial. Wicca, paganism, witchcraft. It's being conflated, right, by investigators, prosecutors, and everyone else involved. I know they're different, but how does that impact this trial?
It's going to be huge. And depending on how all this evidence comes out, I mean, I mainly only do appellate work now. And the first thing that came to my mind was they better be real careful when you're prosecuting this case, because if they take this evidence when it's not directly tied to the crime and they only use it to make him look like some sort of outlier,
someone
right,
who's way different than the rest of us,
to prejudice him, right, against his character, they are going to get a reversal on this conviction. So they better be real careful. The Supreme Court is real funny about that. If it's religious, and pagan is going to be a protected religion, if it's religious and there's no tie, like they can't actually say he was, doing some sort of,
Well, let me tell you some more.
Yes.
Jailhouse informant is going to testify, and he's going to say that Donald Hartung told him that he went forward with the murders because of his Ouija board.
The
It's gonna be
snitch is
tough.
going to say whatever it takes
Yeah.
to save the snitch.
Yeah.
I'm not shocked. I mean, he hears a great story, he's going to tell a great story. And it doesn't have to be necessarily the truth. So what he's saying isn't necessarily what happened. If he hears about this Wiccan religion and, the crazy facts about this case, it's entirely plausible that he does spin a tale to help save himself. And it's hard to tell when it is a jailhouse snitch what's true and what's false.
Jailhouse informant, please. Can we use the proper term?
I'm going to stick to snitch.
Yeah, snitches and the stitches.
Ouija boards, paganism,
Right.
the sheriff saying witchcraft.
Right. Well, let's go back to the search warrant. So the investigators, they search his home, they find a worship room. It has about pagan and Wiccan. I don't know if those officers or detectives knew anything more about that religion than I do now.
Did some research.
Wikipedia? Where'd they get this from?
Yeah, we did it on we did the Wicca research on Wikipedia last night, but he said he researched Wicca pagan rituals.
Right. So he looks on Wikipedia, and anyone could have posted what that religion's about a ritual of killing and bludgeoning people, and then you put that in a search warrant. This is paramount character evidence.
Yes.
I have to agree that this is.
Hey, well, we did our own research. Gwendolyn Reese, who's a contemporary paganism expert, spoke to Seema Iyer. Take a listen.
Contemporary paganism is kind of an umbrella term that includes a number of different traditions, and Wicca is the largest of those traditions. Contemporary paganism is a group of religious traditions that take inspiration from the pre-Christian, mostly European traditions. They are not institutional, and there is no specific doctrine that is required for people to believe. So therefore, there can be a wide variety of beliefs. However, some of the very common beliefs would include being polytheistic or pantheistic, being nature reverencing, honoring the divine feminine as well as divine masculine, and things such as belief frequently in reincarnation, the ability for people to continue to grow and evolve in their spiritual practice, as well as things such as belief in magic and belief in building appropriate, healthy relationships with spirits of a variety of types, including ancestors and nature spirits, as examples.
Marie Napoli is with us in our Court TV studios in New York City. Marie, does the jury need an expert like Gwendolyn Reese to come in and explain all of this?
I think it would be helpful for a jury to have an expert. But you were discussing whether or not this evidence would come in as character. But even if it is character evidence, it's allowed in if it proves motive. And if he had a motive to sacrifice his family members for his religion, that would be something that would be very relevant to bring in. Although this also makes it a very interesting case, a sexy case for the prosecutors to try, I think the real case really is about the money.
The money,
in the
yeah.
end, it all goes back to the money.
Yeah, I mean, the other part of this case is he was cut out of the will in 2012, and then he waited for the Ouija board, according to the jailhouse informant, to tell him when to go forward with the murder, because he had to kill his mother and his 2 half-brothers in order to be entitled to the money.
Exactly.
Yeah, so what do you think here? What do you think is going to happen? Is
It's
this
religious persecution. There's no to take out a warrant based on someone's religious beliefs, and just because there might be some, story.
The blue moon.
This happened 3 days before that. It didn't happen on the. If you're going to do it, you should do it.
It
on
was
the
a
blue
gibbous
moon.
blue moon. It wasn't a full blue moon.
They took the warrant out based on his religious beliefs. And look, if he was a Christian, if he was a Jew, if he was
It'd be a problem, right?
Of course it would. There are plenty of horrific examples of sexual and violent acts all throughout both Old Testament and New Testament. You don't see anybody persecuted or warrants taken out just because they're a Christian or a Jew or a Muslim or anything like that.
They have a room where they have Bible and prayer.
It was a prayer altar. There wasn't bodies hanging from it.
And that's my issue. Like I said, they will get reversed. It's absolutely no doubt in my mind if they don't tread carefully. As a prosecutor, you are not going to go forward and prosecute somebody claiming Wicca, pagan, whatever it is you want to say that they were doing, unless it ties to the murder. Him worshiping pagan or Satan is considered religious under the Supreme Court, right? So that is protected. So unless they've tied this in, meaning he did it, and there was something tied into him actually killing his family or their money, there's no way they can get away with this. And they are treading dangerous water here. But I haven't heard what the evidence is, right? So
Let's talk about the jury selection, Ben.
Right.
How does this issue come up, or what do you want to find out about these jurors? And do you want religious jurors? Do you want non-religious jurors? Who does the defense want?
Right. So if you're doing proper voir dire, I think, and you believe that the judge is going to allow the state to go into this, you have to ask them about their religious preferences. How do they feel about people who aren't of the same faith as them? Then as far as a prospective juror, you want somebody maybe that's a little agnostic, maybe someone who's not necessarily so committed to a certain religion that they view others' beliefs differently. That is what I would want, somebody who could be able to hear that and maybe dispel any connotations that are associated with it. Oh, this guy's a weirdo. So because he doesn't believe like I do, or he has different beliefs, then necessarily he might be guilty of this particular crime. Or it makes it easier for you to associate guilt because he's in a different group. So I would want someone who could maybe look at that and not necessarily be caught up in the fact that, wow, this dude is a devil worshiper or whatever phrase.
Could that fact perhaps help him in the penalty phase if he's convicted?
You mean just because they sort of singled him out for his religious beliefs?
No, the fact that if, in fact, prosecutors can tie this to some sort of demented religious interpretation of Wicca or paganism, that it could perhaps be a mitigating factor to what's going on up here. Because we spoke with Gwendolyn Reese, and there are no sacrifices in Wicca.
Well, I mean, they better be careful in that regard then, because are they then saying that he's not even competent to stand trial? So
I'm saying that's what the defense might argue.
Well, that's
they've
what I'm
tried,
saying.
and he's found competent.
Right, so they're not going to
But
argue that then.
some level of mitigation to get him from death row to life without parole.
I'm not sure what.
If we get there.
I don't think they're going to use any kind of competency
It's
for
not an
that.
aggravating factor,
Yeah.
that's for certain.
Right, I'm saying
So
mitigating.
I think you could roll it in as a mitigation factor.
All right. We shall see. Jury selection continuing in that one. Meanwhile, speaking of jury selection, there's been a lot of skepticism from Harvey Weinstein's defense team that you cannot find 12 people in New York City. Well, I asked you that question today We've got your reaction on social media next.
It was the first made-for-TV trial. Okay.
The trial of the century.
Did you see that?
Like you've never seen it before.
That's what really turned the case around.
A Court TV original series, OJ 25, premieres next Thursday at 9/8 Central, only on Court TV.
City? No, we need to go somewhere else in the state of New York, perhaps upstate New York, to one of those rural counties, maybe Albany, I don't know, somewhere other than New York City and this courthouse. However, ladies and gentlemen, we got 7 jurors today, so we got a lot closer. Now, the question is, those 7 who've been seated, will they be fair and impartial? Are they fair and impartial? You'll find out once they sit down and perhaps if they speak afterwards or whatever happens. But we are getting closer, and we do expect, according to Chanley Painter, opening statements Wednesday of next week. Closing arguments will be coming to you live from New York City next week, if in fact that is the case. So I posted on social media today, I said, can you find 12 fair and impartial jurors in New York City? New York City? First comment. Comment of the day from Diane. I believe so. It happens every day in courtrooms across America, and I want to believe that we can trust people when they promise to be fair and impartial when asked. That's what our justice system is about. Possible question. What is your opinion of how a person is deciding their options while trying to advance their careers? How persons decide their options when trying to advance their careers. Yeah, interesting. And that would be a question to the prospective jurors during voir dire, coming from Diane. So let's start first with the fair and impartial jury. Diane, like me, trusts the jurors. I trust you when you show up at the courthouse. And don't forget, in this case, we were having like 40 a day who were being honest and saying, I can't be fair and impartial, and they left. Should we trust the rest of them?
I applaud your faith. I really, really do. And honestly, I don't think it's that people lie. I think even sometimes people think that they might be and they aren't. And it's hard to tell, right? Especially when you're not doing an individual voir dire, right? If you're just doing a big group questionnaire-based sort of examination going on, it's hard to really dive into what their real thoughts and feelings are, and maybe they're not even really thinking it through.
All right, Marie Napoli joining us in our Court TV studios. New Yorkers, just 12 of them. That's all. We need 12 in the box. We'll have some alternates too, but can those 12 be fair and impartial?
I really don't know. I've grown up down at these courthouses, and I've never seen anything like what was going on today with these mobs of people. You hear it echoing through the neighborhood, up the walls, into the windows. This is really an unprecedented trial in anything that I've seen down here. And I don't know if there was ever a case that he could not get a fair trial. I think this would be it. But I have never seen any of those motions ever granted. And that's why they went to the appellate division. Do I think that that's going to get granted? No. I think he's going to remain here. But whether or not he can have a trial, a fair trial, I really don't think so. People come into jury selection with their own experiences and their own preconceived notions of things. People have their own experiences, and they form their decisions based on that. And they may think that they're being fair. And with what has been out in the news, I really don't know if that's truly possible, even for the jurors that they've already sat.
Marie, another skeptical New Yorker with us tonight. All right. Does anyone else here trust jurors like I do?
Look,
to be honest?
Yeah, this is the problem with jury selection. There's, like we've already talked about, there's really no way to know what this jury truly
But don't we
believes.
find out more about jurors now than we ever have? Especially, you can take a look at their social media accounts, and you've
No.
got a team of people
Nobody
that are
has that
finding
kind of
out
time.
everything.
Assuming you have all those
Yeah,
resources.
I was going to say.
Correct.
Well, Harvey
given the
Weinstein's
time.
got a lot of resources.
I mean, even if you find out all that stuff, people post whatever they want you to know, not necessarily who they are, but who they want to be. So that doesn't really help you, right, at the end of the day. And why should Weinstein's trial be any different than anybody else's? Okay, it might be national, but there's all kinds of cases that are national. And when you go on to the small level, like local level, people know who you are when you're being charged with a crime in a very small community. So why would that be any less unfair than his trial? His trial is going to be just as fair as anybody else's, if not more, because of the amount of money he has. And that judge has bent over backwards to make sure that he's getting a fair trial. You don't see that every day in courts in America.
And Ben, here's what I always say when criminal defense attorneys are crying because it's a high-profile case, and every case we do here on Court TV is high-profile, whether it's nationally high-profile or in the jurisdiction where it's being tried, it's like the biggest case and everyone's talking about it. I just throw a few names at them. Casey Anthony, O.J. Simpson, George Zimmerman. Wait a minute, not guilty, not guilty, not guilty. Right? Sometimes you get convicted, sometimes you don't. I mean, at the end of the day, I think jurors really do listen to the judge.
Well, okay, so I'm sorry, I think you're in the minority again. First of all, I don't think he can get a fair trial up there because of the publicity. And I think he's a different type of celebrity. I put him on the likes of Michael Jackson, O.J. Simpson. You're going to have a lot of hard-hitting celebrities coming to possibly testify in this case. I don't know if they'll be in court or whatnot, but just given the interviews.
Charlize could be there. She's on the witness list.
See? So I think he's in a different position. Do I think that because he's a celebrity, he'll get a fair trial? Possibly, but you have to also consider most jurors don't want to sit on a trial. The ones that do, it raises some concern for me. And in this particular case, his potential jurors, regardless of the verdict, could potentially lead to book deals, movies, that type of stuff. So you have to be kind of aware of that also.
It won't be a Miramax movie, though. That's for sure. Teresa writing tonight, nope. People have already convicted him. I'm predicting whoever they seat will find him guilty. Well, yeah, that could be because they've already convicted him, or prosecutors have a really good case, and the accusers, all 6 of them who will be testifying in the case, are in fact credible. Nancy, most definitely. I have a friend who never ever listens to the news and never looks. There are more people like that than you can imagine. What I would ask, just normal questions, they ask, why would you want to treat them differently? Nancy, let me ask you about that. When I think about having this trial in New York City versus one of those more rural counties in New York State, I mean, isn't New York City the best chance to find people who can be fair and impartial because of the sheer number of people, the number of distractions, and all the things that are going on in New York? And you walk down the street there, people don't even look at you. Well, Marie, don't you think New York City's the best
I
chance?
didn't know you were talking to me.
Oh, yeah.
I'm sorry. People are very friendly. You have a misconception of New Yorkers. They're very friendly.
I don't know. I'm from Jersey.
they
Every
take
time I
love
go
of
to New
each
York, they
other.
won't look at me.
You're too handsome. That's why. No, I don't think so. I think really you're better off where not in a city from where he's from. People in New York, I think, overall have had preconceived notions. And as to something that was being said before, this is a long trial. It's going to be 4 or 5 months. And a lot of the people that were getting up and saying that they could not be, a lot of people got up and said that they could not be fair, that they had already made a predetermination. Some of those are saying that just to get off the jury because they don't want to be sitting for that long. But some of those, and a good portion of those, were being honest. And I believe that there's a good number of those people that just want to be on this jury but have those preconceived notions. Everybody in New York knows about this case. He's a local, and everyone's been talking about it for a long time. I don't think he'll get a fair shake here, but I don't think the case is going to get moved.
All right. And you scared me there. 4 or 5 weeks, not 4 or 5 months of this trial, because
4 or 5 months.
no, it's not going to be 4. It's not going to be a 5-month trial. Weeks.
4 or 5, I'm sorry, 4 or 5 weeks. I keep saying
All right,
that.
good, good. You're scaring me.
Sorry.
Because I'm going up to New York. You know how expensive it's going to be for me to stay in New York for 5 months? All right, when we come back, folks.
There are a lot of nice places that aren't crazy.
All right, we'll see. I don't know. I don't know if I trust her. No, I like New York. I grew up in New Jersey. Anyway, when we come back, Judge Burke speaking to the jury today about Me Too. We'll talk about it when we return.
One of the most honored actresses in Hollywood once paid him the highest of compliments.
I just want to thank my agent, Kevin Uvain, and God, Harvey Weinstein.
Gwyneth Paltrow thanked him before anyone else when she won the Oscar for Best Actress in 1999.
I would like to thank Harvey Weinstein and everybody at Miramax Films for their undying support of me.
Movies he backed like Shakespeare in Love,
Can you love a fool?
Can you love a player?
The English Patient, and Pulp Fiction. Made stars out of his actors, won critical acclaim, and made him a household name in the business.
He was a big deal. He was everyone knew about him.
Heather Kerr was an aspiring actress in 1989. The Los Angeles native was 20 years old, working part-time for an industry executive and hoping for her big break.
There was a buzz around Harvey, and he was on the rise, and everybody knew it. He was the guy to meet. He was the guy to get close to, and everybody wanted to be attached to him.
Most of the time, all she got to do was pass Weinstein's calls to her boss, except one day he invited her to meet him.
My memory of that is so vivid. It's clearer than memories of last week. It was such a turning point in my life.
When she arrived at his office, Kerr hoped Weinstein would talk about opportunities for her.
And I wanted to bring forth the best information about myself that I could. Started telling him my history, what I had done professionally, and he said, you know what, none of that matters. None of that matters. He said, I'll tell you how it works. Here's the deal. You're gonna sleep with me, and I'm gonna see how good you are. Meanwhile, he unzips his pants, and he pulls out his wiener and reached over and grabbed my hand and held my hand there.
The incident terrified her and led her to question acting as her career choice.
I can't sleep with people to become successful. And he had just told me that was how it was done.
After Weinstein's decades-long history of alleged sexual abuse made news, she was among dozens of women who came forward.
Disgraced movie producer Harvey Weinstein. Former producer Harvey Weinstein exiting a Manhattan federal courthouse.
More charges could be filed against disgraced Hollywood mogul.
Dozens of women, 80 women, have come forward in recent months.
Oh my God, for the first time in my life, since that happened, I thought, I'm not the only one.
The Weinstein case drew a string of accusers, including Gwyneth Paltrow, Salma Hayek, and Ashley Judd. The actresses accused him of sexual harassment.
Violence stops the rape!
Their experiences opened the floodgates. Women were encouraged to share their own stories using hashtag #MeToo. It exploded into a global movement and an international campaign to raise awareness of sexual abuse and assault.
I thought no meant no.
Judd, one of Weinstein's early accusers, told The Times and ABC News that Weinstein had invited her to his hotel room, where he asked for a massage and wanted her to watch him shower.
If I could go back retrospectively with a magic wand, I wish I could prevent it for anyone, always.
Weinstein had reportedly settled 8 abuse claims between 1997 and 2015, with women including actress Rose McGowan, who spoke to ABC News about an alleged incident.
As an international rapist, okay?
She tweeted, "I told the head of your studio HW raped me," referring to Harvey Weinstein.
He thinks he's done nothing wrong.
She and Jed are pursuing legal action against the disgraced movie producer, but they will not be a part of his upcoming criminal case.
This is not a trial about the history of Harvey Weinstein or the history of the allegations against him.
New York prosecutors have charged Weinstein with 2 counts of predatory sexual assault, 1 count of criminal sexual act, and 2 counts of rape involving 2 women dating back to 2013 and 2006. Weinstein has pleaded not guilty. Through his lawyers, he denies any criminal wrongdoing and that any sexual acts were consensual.
I think that there's credibility issues in regard to the entire case, frankly.
What are you talking about? I didn't want to hurt your feelings.
No. What you said was that you didn't want to piss me off.
Prosecutors recently beefed up their case by adding Sopranos actress Annabella Sciorra to their witness lineup. She claims Weinstein raped her in 1993. But her testimony isn't as worrisome to his lawyers as the media storm that has followed Weinstein at every step.
For this particular case, you need a juror who is willing essentially to be brave enough to be fair. Can we get jurors who walk into court and say, if I don't think Mr. Weinstein's guilty, can I say not guilty?
So really, the entire Me Too movement really took off after the Harvey Weinstein controversy. So Judge Burke actually addressed that in court with the prospective jurors. Let me read part of what he told this jury. He said, "This trial is not a referendum on the Me Too movement. This is not a referendum on sexual harassment. It is not a referendum on women's rights. There is no controversy about women's rights being a good thing, but that is not the issue here. The issue is not if you feel strongly about those subjects, but only if those beliefs would prevent you from deciding the facts on the case. You must decide this case on the evidence." Me Too. Is that gonna have an impact here?
Without a doubt.
The judge is saying it doesn't.
Well, he's
Don't
saying,
even consider that.
He's saying it shouldn't, and he's saying that you shouldn't consider it, whether or not it's already had an impact. I think it has, and you can tell just in the jury selection process. It's a huge factor in this, in trying to pick a jury. So I think it's already had, a big effect on this case. But
I would argue that it may
forward.
actually help the defense because you're getting rid of all these people who can't be fair and impartial, and if they were impacted by Me Too, they are. So the Me Too warriors out there who feel strongly about it and can't look beyond it will not be a part of this jury.
You hope.
Yeah.
I agree.
Hopefully not be
You
a part
hope. Right. That's a.
So, Marie, I see her shaking her neck too, Marie.
Yeah.
I agree. I think you're getting people with Me Too movement on the jury. Certain people are saying what needs to be said so that they can get on this jury, especially if they have strong Me Too feelings about it. A lot of the people that are getting off the jury are saying they couldn't be fair because they don't want to sit in the trial. And I do feel that the judge has a certain pressure on him. This is a landmark case. He wants to keep the case. He wants to say everything that he needs to say to make sure that it's fair. But he also has a great pressure of what's going on in the press and the political climate around him. He doesn't want to be the judge that, let him go if everybody wants him convicted. And he doesn't want to be the judge that convicts him if there's a movement the other way. So there's a lot of pressure that goes on in a case like this outside the courtroom that really affects inside the courtroom.
And the other thing that did happen today is the prosecution accused the defense of excusing all of the young white females. All right, let's head out to New York City where Court TV legal correspondent Chanley Painter has a preview of what we can expect tomorrow.